Sound check. Sound check 1, 2. Am I loud and clear? Okay. Hey guys, welcome. Should we wait for another 10 minutes? Is anybody experiencing any frame drops or any kind of trouble? Check 1, 2, 3. Connection wise, I think we're solid. Yeah, let's wait for 10 to 15 minutes. It's no hurry. Okay, I think we've notified people, and they'll be joining us shortly. Okay, before we get into this, if anyone has a question, there's a live chat on the right side of your screen. You can just drop the question in there. Okay, please don't hesitate to ask questions. All right. So, welcome to the workshop, guys. Thank you so much for coming. And the song we'll be focusing on today is called Still Flying by a band called The Apprehended. It's a very heavy, it's a very hard rock song. And I'll play you the song first, and then we'll try to break it down instrument by instrument, and I'll talk about my approach and all that. Okay? So, I want you to listen to the song first. Okay, so that was the song. It's a really good song. I like it. Okay, so we have our first question coming in from Tarun. When did these sound mixing applications were introduced to the Indian music industry? That's a good question. Actually, the first, I think the first application, or DAW, we call it DAW now. I think it came out in the late 90s, and the first ever application like this that you're seeing on the screen right now, it's called Pro Tools. The first version of Pro Tools came out in the late 90s, and I think now we're on the 12th version of Pro Tools, 12.8 or something. So it's been a long time. So I think that answers your question. Okay, so if any of you has a question, please just drop it in the chat box and I'll get to it. Okay. Alright, so this, I'll tell you something about, tell you the, one second guys. Okay, yeah. So this session has about 50 odd tracks, and okay, so how do you start something like this? What is mixing? And so there are 3 steps, okay, in making a song. All you need to know is there are 3 steps. The first step is where the song gets recorded in a studio, or it gets produced, right? Okay, then you don't mix your own songs. You usually send it out to a person who does it for you. So he gets either a session of that production or recording, or he gets the stems, okay? And then he lays out the stems like I've done here, like this. Looks scary, but it's very, very simple. They're just individual tracks. Okay, so I've color coded them. It's the second most important part is that you lay your session out like this, so you can see everything clearly. Okay, so I've got the vocals, and many vocal tracks on this song. It's a very complicated song. You see there are 22 vocal tracks. There are almost 4, 8, I don't know, 12 or so drum tracks. There is a bass track, as white color, and there are about 10 electric guitar tracks, and there's also a piano track. There's some synth sound effects, and there's some additional stuff that I'm using that I've added to the session, which we will get to eventually. And there is a reference track. You see, this is a reference track, and we'll get to that in a minute. Okay, so why do you need to lay your sessions out like this? Okay, we have another question. Wait, what is the difference between mixing and mastering? Good question. So, like I said, mixing is taking multiple tracks that you've recorded or somebody else has recorded, right, and combining those to make one single track that you hear on your phone or anywhere, right? So it's taking many tracks like this. For example, let's take the example of a drum kit. Okay, so there are about, I don't know, there's a good amount of tracks here. So we have the kick, there is a snare drum, there's a snare drum up and a snare drum down. So those are the mic placements on the snare drum. Okay, so these are all individual tracks that come from the studio, from wherever this has been recorded, and it is imported into a DAW, like an application or a software. Okay, like this one. It's a very simple software. And then all the vocal tracks, all the drum tracks, and all the bass track, and all the guitar tracks are then combined into one single song that you listen to on your phone. Okay, so that basically is mixing. And mastering is working on that single track that the mix engineers produce. Okay, so there's one export that you get, which is a stereo export. Okay, and mastering engineers work only on that stereo export to make it. So there's mastering is a whole another domain, and if I get if I get into that, it'll get very very confusing. Okay, so that is the basic difference between mixing and mastering, is that mixing focuses on many tracks and combining those many tracks into one single track that you hear. Okay, the left and right, the stereo track. And mastering is then again working on that track to perfect it further. Okay, to release it on Spotify, or and all those, to basically put it out into the world. So the track that you hear on your cell phone is a mastered track. Okay, it's never a mixed track. You never release a track after you've mixed it. Okay, you only release it after you've mastered it. Okay, so I hope that clarifies it out. That's about it. And we have another question: which software is this? This software is called Studio One. I think this is the 4th version of Studio One, and it's by a company called PreSonus. Okay, I really appreciate you guys asking questions, so please continue to do that. Okay, so I was talking about why we color code tracks. So basically why we do it is because you have so many tracks in this session here that it's hard to sort of navigate your way through the session. Okay, if everything is the same color, then if I want to work on the kick drum, let's say I want to work on this bass, this kick drum. Okay, then I have to go look for it in the session, and it gets very it wastes a lot of time. Okay, and mixing is a process where you have to keep track of the time. You have to be fast, or otherwise your ears are going to get saturated, and you're not going to be able to make the best decisions that you're capable of making. So that is basically why we arrange the session like this, so we can navigate it through very quickly. Okay, all right. So about this track, it's a rock track. Okay, you've got many guitars, you've got cool riffs, and you've got heavy sounding drum kits, and there are many vocals. Okay, so one of the few things that you do to organize your session like this is by making groups. Okay, you just don't go straight up adding EQs and compressors and effects on each channel. You can do that, but that's not the right way to do it. So what you do is you take all these vocal tracks, all these hundreds of vocal tracks, right, and you combine them into one group track or a bus track. We call it a bus track. Okay, that's the sound engineer's language. So this is the track called lead vox. Okay, so all these tracks that are in the lead, okay, have been combined into this track. So for example, if I solo this lead vox, you see in the session view here on the top, if I solo the lead vox, only the vocals that are in the lead are soloed. You see that? And nothing else is yes, everything else just goes on mute automatically. Likewise, okay, I have the drums going into a drum track. So if I solo that, all the, I don't know why these are samples, that's why they're not going in. I'll talk about those. Let me just do that. And all these tracks are going into a drum track. So if I solo that, all the drums get soloed. Okay, similarly, all the electric guitar tracks are going into the electric main bus. Okay, all the various different electric parts are going into different like the electric bridge. These two tracks are just panned left and right, so they're going to one stereo track. Remember the bus tracks in a DAW or in a software like this. Okay, bus means it's usually a stereo track. It's always a stereo track. Sorry, it's always a stereo track. So when you send two tracks, for example, these are two tracks, right? Let me just play these two tracks, and it'll be a lot easier to show you rather than to explain it to you. Okay. So these two tracks. You see that? They're basically the same, okay? But the only difference between them is one is panned left and the other one is panned right. Okay, so we have this basic panning going on. So what I want to do is these two tracks, I want to treat them the same. Okay, I'm going to add same effects to them. I'm going to add the same amount of compression to them, the same amount of reverb if I'm going to add any. So I'm going to treat these two tracks the same. So I don't want to see, this is the mixer window and this is the session window. Okay, so these two tracks, looking at these two tracks in the electric guitar 9 and electric guitar 10 in this in the mixer window. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, what I would have to do if I wasn't sending them into a bus track, is I would have had to apply an EQ. For example, I'll just apply an EQ here, and then again I'd have to copy the EQ over here. Instead of that, I can just send them to one common track like the electric bridge, and I can apply an EQ to that bus, and it gets applied to both the tracks because they're the same. We just want to pan it left and right? So it becomes easier to manage your session, and you don't have to keep going back to these tracks individually. You can just treat the buses. Okay, alright, so that's why you arrange sessions clearly according to your taste and your choice of colors. There's no rule. You don't have to have these drums in yellow color always. It's your choice. Okay, as long as you can see everything clearly, as long as you can differentiate between all the tracks, it's fine. Okay, moving on to the next challenge. Where do you start? All right, in a mix like this, where do you start? Do you treat the vocals first, or the drums, or the bass, or the guitars? How do you do it? Okay, so first of all, the thing that you need to know about mixing is there are no rules. Okay, it doesn't matter how you start. Okay, DJ Jerry has a question. Tracks panned in stereo when rendered in mono sounds low in level. How do you compensate that? But why would you render anything in mono if the tracks are panned in stereo? Are you talking about mixing in mono? Is that it? Okay. Look, mixing in mono, I think is a big mistake. Okay, you don't want to mix in mono. You don't want to mix anything in mono ever, because that's just not how we do it anymore, do we? We don't listen to songs on iPhone speakers all the time. So I don't personally, I don't ever mix in mono. Okay, you have the stereo field, utilize it. That's all I'm saying. Okay, I don't mix in mono. I'm sorry if that doesn't answer your question, but I don't care about how my tracks sound in mono. Okay, because here's another question. How to make a sound level meter in which we can adjust sound level according to our requirements? Can you please elaborate that question, because I don't not sure I get it. How to make a sound level meter? Okay, but mostly people here in mono. I don't know, man. I don't know a lot of people who listen to music in mono anymore. They're at least wearing a pair of earphones or listening to, even phones come with stereo speakers these days, right? But like I said, mono, checking your mixes in mono, it's not going to help you help your mixes sound better in stereo, if that's what you're trying to ask me. Is that what you're trying to ask me? Does mixing in mono help? But I don't think it does. I've seen many people do it, and their mixes just sound like regular mixes. Right. No, no, man. Bluetooth speakers, some of them are mono, but I think the world is sort of moving on to stereo speakers. No. Okay. So let's just agree to disagree here. But I don't want to mix anything in mono ever. Look, we have we have the entire stereo field, right? So let's just use it and not mix in mono ever. Okay. You ask some of the big engineers, and they're gonna tell you the same thing, that they don't care how they mix sounds in mono. It doesn't make much of a difference. Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make much of a difference. I think so. I don't mix in mono. Okay, so I'm not the expert here. Okay, yeah, maybe there's a little bit of a difference, but I don't know. I guess I won't be able to answer that question for you. All right. But I don't mix in mono. If it sounds good to me in stereo, it's fine. I just put it out. Yes. Can we move on? All right. Music Pro. Can you? Okay. Message retracted. Okay. Fine. Okay. So moving on. What was I going to say? Okay. Where do you start? Right. How do you start in a session that has more than 30, 40, 50, even 100 tracks? How do you start your mix? Right. So I usually start with the music. I build up the music first, and then I tweak the vocals according to the music, because tweaking the vocals first, I'm not going to get a very good idea of how it is going to sound in sort of how it's going to sound with the music, right? So if I tweak the music first, I can sort of make the vocals sit in the whole in the front of everything, right? So as soon as I've taken care of the music, I then start mixing the vocals very, very slowly. So that's my way. There's no rules. You can start mixing the vocals, you can start mixing the drums or the bass. There are no rules. Okay, so just whatever you find comfortable. And I think it's a matter of practice. Once you've mixed many songs, you sort of get an idea, and you sort of develop your own method of doing it. Just keep in mind that there are no rules, but some things, yeah, there are no rules. Like, I can't give you a definite sort of method here as to where you should start mixing. Okay, so I usually build the music first, and then I slowly start to mix vocals. Okay, so let's break it down. Let's solo each and everything, and I'll try to explain to you what I've done to all the tracks here individually, and how I've made them go together or sound good together. Okay, so let's look at the vocals first. Let's solo the vocals. Does anybody have any doubts so far? Please explain some main differences in mono and stereo. Okay, There are no differences. There's only one difference, I think, and the only difference is that mono means one track. Okay, anything in mono is going to be in the center. Okay, and anything in a stereo track, the only difference between mono and stereo are the fields, right? Mono is just one particular channel, just one channel. Okay, everything in mono is going to sound like it is in the center. But when you talk about a stereo track, it can be anywhere between the left and the right field. All right. So if it's a stereo track and you could place an instrument anywhere from left to right. Okay, so that's basically the difference between mono and stereo. In stereo, you get to utilize two channels. All right. So hope that clears it out. Okay, so let's solo the vocals here. I think they come in.
I've got the world on my shoulders, every baby breath, the wind in our sails, but they're rolling us steady. Rough and smooth and capable, willing and raggedy, but I'm becoming a good.
Okay, so there is a chain that I follow usually, right? It usually starts with an equalizer. Sometimes I use a de-esser if the vocals in the studio, as they're recorded, sound very, very harsh. I will try to use a de-esser and take some of that harshness away before I even start to EQ the vocal. You can do that. That's a very good trick, actually. And the next okay, so I'll just go through the EQ settings. Okay, like I said, I mix the music first. See, because it's very hard to make decisions like how much high end there should be in the vocal, and how much mid range should the vocal have. All of that is based on how the music sounds, right? All the other tracks sound. Okay, so this vocal track needed to be very, very, very bright. So I'm adding a lot, almost 15 dB of highs in the vocal. Okay, and actually I'm already taking some of the stuff that you don't need at all away. Okay, all of that is going into a compressor.
I've got the world on my shoulders.
More than 10 dB of compression, because the vocals are so dynamic on this song that I had to use a compressor with a very, very fast attack, and I'm compressing the vocals very hard because I want to tame the vocals and I don't want them to jump out of the song. Basically, that would sound very, very bad. I'm actually using a second compressor to further compensate.
I've got the world on my shoulders, every baby breath, the wind.
You see, the second compressor is not as aggressive as the first one, but you get the point, right? So yeah, there's a multiband compression which is taking out. Let me just show you the difference if I turn off the multiband compressor.
I've got the world on my shoulders.
There's some harshness at about 2K in the mid range. Just notice there'll be a slight difference once I put the multiband compressor in.
I've got the world on my shoulders, every baby breath, the wind in our sails, but they're rolling us steady. Rough and smooth and capable.
So multiband compression, I'm just using a little bit to tame the mids and the lows, just so that we get a balance. Multiband compression is just like compression, but instead of the whole instead of the entire frequency range, you work on a particular frequency range that you think is poking out. That's what a multiband compressor does. It's a very, very simple concept, and it's all going into a DSR at the end. So very basic, nothing crazy going on as far as the inserts are concerned. Okay. Is there any perfect way to reduce dynamic range of a track when mixing? Is there any perfect way to reduce the dynamic range of a track when mixing? Are you talking about adding a compressor at the end of the mix? I'll just wait for your answer. I didn't get a reply from Quantized Loop, but DJ Cherry has another question. Can you make us listen to the vocals before any post-processing? Sure. Yes, let me just turn off all the inserts, and here's the vocal. It's dry as I got it.
I've got the world on my shoulders, every baby breath. I've got the world on my shoulders, every baby breath. The wind in our sails, but they're rolling us steady. But I'm becoming a ghost.
So that's how they sound, completely dry. And this is with all the inserts and sends.
I've got the world on my shoulders, every baby breath. The wind in our sails, but they're rolling us steady.
So a pretty significant difference there. Okay, so moving on to the sends. There are a few things happening. The vocal track is first going into a small slab delay. Okay, a slab delay is basically a very fast mono. It can be a stereo slab delay, but I'm using a I'm using a stereo ping pong delay. Okay, I'll just take everything out and we'll listen to only the slab delay. I'm not even sure if it's a slab delay. Let's.
I've got the world on my shoulders.
Yeah, it's a mono slab
Every
delay.
breath, the wind in our sails, but they're rolling us steady. Rough and smooth and capable, willing and raggedy. But
It's a very subtle effect. I'm not sure if you can hear it clearly. It's a very, very, very. Hey, thanks, man. I don't know if you're being sarcastic, but thanks. So, a very, very subtle difference. The next effect is another delay. So you see, there's a slab delay, and there is a ping pong delay. Now, yeah, that's what I was thinking. I remember adding a ping pong delay. Okay, a ping pong delay is nothing but a delay that jumps from left to right. Let me play it for you.
I've got the world on my shoulders.
You hear that?
I've got the world on my.
So that's a ping pong delay, and I send delays into reverbs. Usually, that's what I do. I first send the vocal into a delay, and then into a reverb. So the delays are not obvious. So they just they get affected by reverbs, and they are. We are also taming delays here with the use of reverbs. If that makes sense at all. Okay, so there's a fairly long reverb also. So let's hear what that's doing.
I've got the world on my shoulders.
You hear that? The delays are not so obvious anymore.
I've got the world on my shoulders.
They sound even better actually. Okay, so that's basically a simple reverb. Going into so this is completely a matter of choice, or a creative decision, if you will. This is a distortion unit, so we're adding a bit of distortion on the vocals.
I've got the world on my shoulders.
Take that out.
I've got the world on my shoulders.
I don't even know if you can hear it, but
I've got the world on my shoulders. Every baby breath, the wind in our sails. What
you should be able to hear it. It is significant. So it's just adding a bit of thickness, to the sound. It's not doing anything major, but it's just a matter of choice here. Just icing on the cake. Any more questions? None. Okay. So that is the lead vocal treatment. And we'll move on to the drums next. I want to show you the drums because drums are exciting. Okay, so let's solo the drums. Right, the first thing that you want to do is compress the drums, right, overall. So I'm just compressing the drums, not by a huge amount, barely hitting 4 dB of gain reduction. The attack and the release times, they sort of depend on the kind of sound that you want to achieve. If you want really pumpy, fast sounding drums, you want to go for a very quick attack and a quick release. But I didn't want to pump them a lot because there's so much happening in the song, and it's already very exciting. We don't need to add any more dramatic excitement to any element. Okay, so it was not necessary basically. Right, so compressor, followed by an EQ, just getting rid of the muddiness in the sound at 500 hertz. That's 500 hertz is a frequency to remember because that's where usually the mud is. Okay, in almost every sort of musical element, right? So I'll take it out so you can listen. Sound a lot more cleaner. That makes sense to me. Okay, so that's basically it. And parallel compression, we'll get to that at the end because it is something that I want to talk about, not briefly. So they're going into a similar distortion unit. Like I said, it's a matter of choice here. I don't know if it is making a real difference, but I'll take it in and out to show it to you anyway. It's bringing the drums into into the front, if that makes sense. I know a lot of you are beginners and all these concepts are just not going to make any sense, but you don't have to do this, okay? The more you mix, the more you're going to get into these things very, very slowly. So you don't have to throw distortion units. Don't start throwing distortion units on everything, okay? Because that would destroy what you're trying to achieve in the first place. And there's a room reverb that all the drums are together going into. Let me take it out. Again, a very subtle effect. That's it. That covers all the drums. Any questions so far? All right. I think there are some questions that I haven't answered. Yeah, quantized loop. If you could elaborate your question, I'll try to answer it. I didn't understand you at all there. Is there any perfect way to reduce the dynamic range of a track? To reduce the dynamic range, are you talking about? Is there any drawback if I use more than one compressor? No. There is no drawback as such, but like I said, if the dynamic range, let's say if you have a violin part, right? The violinist, he or she is not going to play the violin at the same level, right? It's not going to be consistent at every single point of time. So maybe she gets excited in the middle and hits one note very, very hard, right? It's going to jump. The levels are going to jump, okay? So if one compressor tops out, let's say the limit of one compressor is 20 dB, and the level, because of her excitement, jumped so far up high that one compressor is just maxing out, right? Then you want to use another compressor. I don't recommend that you do it every time, but if it is necessary, like I said, if it's necessary, do it, right? Don't let anybody tell you that this is wrong or that is wrong, that is too extreme. No, there are no rules here, right? There is no rule book for mixing. So like I said, you develop your own methods. The more you do it, the more you'll realize it. It's surprising, actually. The more you mix, you'll be surprised at how better you get just by each and every mix. So you'll be getting a lot better very, very quickly if you just keep mixing every single day. Try mixing one simple song every day, and just after a month or so, just listen to the differences between your mixes. It'll be huge, trust me. So it's just a matter of preference and necessity. Yeah. Okay. I appreciate all the questions, guys. Thank you so much. And I hope I'm doing a decent enough job of answering your questions. Okay. Let's move on to the electric guitars, and then we'll play some tracks together and try to understand why and how they are going together, why they're sounding good together. So the electric guitars, there are two main electric guitars. Electric guitars, starting with a simple EQ. Okay, if I take the if I turn it off, back in. Like you can hear, uh, if I take the EQ off, they sound very mid-rangey. Notice. So when I put the EQ on, just trying to get rid of the mid-range. It's a very pokey mid-range, and it all makes sense when I actually let's just play the drums also. It's just basic EQing, adding a lot of high end, taking out some mid range, adding some low end. But it's a really well recorded guitar. That's all it starts with. That's what a great sound is achieved. If you record it well, I think you can mix it fairly easily. So that's it with the electric guitar. Compressing an electric guitar. Can any of you tell me why compressing an electric guitar is usually not done or usually not recommended? Can any one of you at least try to answer this question? It's very interesting. Because the answer is very interesting actually. Dry guitars and processing on the guitars. What are you trying to say? Okay. We don't compress electric guitars, distorted guitars. Yeah, my question was why do you not compress distorted guitars? Can any one of you try to answer? Okay, we don't compress distorted guitars because you know the reason why guitars are distorted is because they're compressed very hard. Okay, that is the reason why they distort, and they're already so compressed that they don't usually jump out in the track, right? They're not usually very dynamic, so you don't need to compress them. Usually don't need to compress them. Okay, but I'm sure I've added a compressor and it's not doing anything at all. See? It's not even moving. I think there are some points in the song where the guitar is a bit dynamic. That is why I've added a compressor, because I must have heard at some point the guitar was jumping out too much, and I'm just controlling the overall performance rather than the sound of the guitar, if that makes sense. uh, it's followed by an EQ. I'm putting some of the frequencies back. Take it in now. Okay, so the reason why I'm using two EQs is because this EQ doesn't let me get as sort of surgical as this EQ. It's a very surgical EQ. I can make tweaks, very minute and specific tweaks in this EQ a lot easier than I can make in this EQ. Okay, this I happen to use this a lot because I like it, because it has a sound, and that's a whole other debate between analog and digital sort of modeled stuff, but not going to get into that. But I like this EQ, that's why I use it. And this is a surgical EQ. I can make very small tweaks with this EQ. Okay, that is the reason why I'm using another EQ to fine tune things. Alright, and this bit is adding some extra high end. That's all it's doing. We don't even need to talk about it. Just a matter of preference again. Some things in here are so minute that they just end up becoming a matter of preference, right? You don't need to know about all these things. They'll just end up confusing you even more. See, most of these things, all you need to know, I think you'll master mixing, the process of mixing, when you understand two concepts really well. Okay, the first is if you learn how to EQ, you basically have conquered 60% of the journey, right? Let's say 50% of the journey, and the next 40% of the journey is conquered with the help of a compressor. Okay, if you learn to use these two tools, I think you'll master the process of mixing. The rest is just a matter of taste. All right, reverbs, delays, and you have these weird distortion units. Okay, all these things, they just become, they're not as let's just say, not as important as being able to use these two things very well. Okay, so all you need to learn, all you need to focus on, if you're a beginner, is learn how to use EQs. Okay, learn how to use compressors. Get these two, try to master these two, and I think you'll do great. Okay, so if you are looking for a starting point, try to learn EQ and compression. Okay, EQ is equalization, and if you don't know what these terms are, they're they're probably the most basic elements of mixing. Okay, equalization is nothing but a frequency based amplifier. Okay, if that makes sense. For example, if we look at the frequency range between 0 to 20,000 here, 20,000, right, it goes beyond 20,000, but let's not focus on that. What EQ does is that if you select this frequency, for example, you see there's a boost in this frequency here. The frequency range that we're boosting here is 4.4 kilohertz, right? So if I select that frequency and boost it further, all you're doing is you're amplifying this frequency, right? You're increasing the volume of this frequency. That is all an EQ is. And what does that do? That basically changes the characteristics of the sound. Okay, that is as simple as it gets. and I don't think there's a simpler explanation at all. It's just a frequency based amplifier. Why we should not mix our own songs? Okay, by not mixing your own songs, what I meant to say was that if you produce a song, your ears, they get saturated. Okay, does that make sense? Your ears get so saturated that mixing is a very technical process. You need to be able to hear frequencies, and you need to have a fresh set of ears, right? So if you're mixing your own songs, you've heard the song so many times that you probably will. There are people that have done it. I'm not saying it's not possible, right? But you should avoid mixing your own songs, because your ears get so saturated from producing your own music that mixing, being as technical as it is, should be handled with a fresh set of ears. Does that make sense? Your own mixes will probably not sound as good, right? So it's not a very good idea to mix your own music, and I don't recommend it. I've done it and I've failed. So my recommendation would be to not do it at all, to just send the track to someone else. All right. Okay. Moving on to the solos. Let's look at the solos for a while. So just a basic EQ, adding some bottom end. No. So like I said, EQ and compression is basically the two biggest sort of moves that are going to matter. There is a bass guitar. So let's look at what's happening on the bass guitar. Low end, I think, can be a bit tricky to mix. This again is a matter of taste and preference, so I'm not even going to talk about it. Compression, a surgical EQ. I'll turn it off and see how ugly that sounds. It sounds a lot better and a lot less harsh with the EQ here. And okay, let's look at the back vocals. So like I said, there are a lot of vocal files in this session. So I'm gonna have to look. Again, EQ, compression, and reverb. You see a lot of high end. Compression. See the difference between these back vocals and the lead vocal. The lead vocal is just so dynamic. The singer is screaming into the microphone, literally.
Even shy, but God knows I'm not a strong man. But it gave
Look
me
at this compressor.
everything that I need to survive.
And these guys at the background, they're just singing.
Good man. I never told you I was fit enough to even try. But God,
That's why you don't need to compress.
good man. I never told you I was fit enough to even.
That's why you don't need to compress them very, very hard. I hope all of this is making sense. And if not, please ask questions. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about another cool concept. Using samples. Okay, sometimes what we tend to do is to replace a stock sound. Okay, let me solo the snare drum here. So this is what the snare drum sounds like on its own. Okay. And what I've done is I've used a sample. Right? A sample is nothing but a sound from your library. Okay, so I've chosen a snare drum sample. And I've blended that sample in with the rest of the drum sound. It sounds a lot better with the sample. This is without the sample. Again, a matter of preference and a matter of to me it sounds this one sounds a lot nicer. So I've kept it. So there are decisions like this that you need to make that just come with practice. That's all I can say. Okay. So together I'll play the song once again so that you can hear all of these things together again. Maybe things will start to make more sense when you listen to the song. things work together. Suddenly you can understand why all the high end makes sense, right? When compared to this. Okay, so we had a question from Quantized Loop, which is the best reverb of waves for a vocal? There are many good reverbs that waves makes. I think one of my favorites. There's no such thing as the best reverb, because there are so many good reverbs that you can choose from seriously a wide range of reverbs. But for vocals, I really like to use the H reverb. It's the reason why I've kept it. I've kept it in the simplest possible look here, because if I expand it, there's a lot more options that you get in this reverb. So it'll be better if you not go down that road at all. It sounds good. The reverb sounds really good. That is basically why I use it. So there's no such thing as a best reverb though. Anything else you'd like to know? Because we are, I believe, approaching the end of this session. The point of this session was to sort of give you an idea, as to how things work together and how different, how to use some of the effects and how to manage sessions. And we haven't gone in too deep, because a lot of you are beginners, and I don't want to sort of inject a lot of information. Any other questions? I'll wait for the questions now, because I think we've approached the end. Okay, if you guys are done with the questions, there's a few more things I'd like to talk about. Okay, after you're done tweaking everything, right? This is not a thing that you have to do, but it's usually a good idea to add a compressor at the end of everything. What this does is it makes everything a lot tighter, right? And if this also, again, a matter of preference and a matter of choice, but if I turn it off, you probably won't be able to hear any difference at all. maybe you can't. If you're using really good equipment or a really good set of headphones, you definitely can tell that there's a difference. Okay. But this again is a matter of preference. So that was basically it. It was a good session. Thank you so much. We also, if you go ahead and visit our website, we also have courses, right? This was just a this was just an overview. I didn't go in too deep, right? And we have courses, so you can check that out. If you seriously want to get into mixing or mastering or music production, you can check our website out definitely. And please make sure to follow us on all the channels, all the social media networks. And yeah, can we master the track on headphones? Yes, definitely you can master a track on headphones, given that you are trained, given that you have you need to have a decent pair of headphones. But yes, it is possible to master a track on headphones. You just need to trust your source. You can actually mix and master on anything, as long as it's decent. Okay, don't try to master on 5 or 600 rupee earphones, please, because that probably will not work. All right, two things. Thank you for coming. Thank you if you've stayed till the end. Uh, thank you so much. There are 5 people left. Yeah, there's the message. You can check all the courses that we offer on the website if you want to learn all these things and go into these weird, deep, interesting concepts. Please go right ahead and sign up for a course. And if you've learned anything at all today, I'd consider that this was a successful session. Thanks a lot for joining. Stay safe, and thank you. That's it.